Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we're going to start looking at the decks from Lorwyn block. We're going to start with Lorwyn, which is the first set. Always confusing when the first set has the same name as the block. But we're going to start off by looking at Boggart Feast, which is the black and red deck. So we've got the deck list here. 28 creatures, 4 sorceries, 2 instants, 2 enchantments, 24 land, mana curve off to the side there. So we get to talk about Lorwyn, which is a block I have a lot of fondness for. It is a tribal block, which I like tribal blocks mostly, just because I'm a filthy casual scrub, and building a tribal deck is basically deck building on easy mode. So yeah, and there was just like a lot of really fun cards in Lorwyn. I really liked a lot of the the kind of the artwork and kind of the creative decisions taken, and I think that's really exemplified actually by the goblins of Lorwyn, who are the Boggarts. So. Really interesting to see the goblins in black and red. Normally we usually associate goblins just with red, but in Lorwyn they were in black as well. Basically every tribe was across 2 colours, which led to some really interesting things like white merfolk and black elves, and like we usually elves we normally associate with green now, but or we used to, and we kind of accept that black is like the secondary color for elves, but this is where it really started, like putting elves in black and goblins as well. But yeah, so yeah, tribal block, a lot of tribal effects. Let's just get into it. So the theme of the deck. So Boggarts love sacrificing themselves, so they have a lot of sacrifice effects, a lot of death triggers. So it's kind of essentially very black red aggro kind of weenie deck. So one of the rares in the deck is Mad Auntie. So 2 cards in the black for a 2/2. Other goblins you control get +1/+1, and you can tap to regenerate another target goblin. Kind of a weak rare, if I'm honest. This actually gets downshifted to uncommon in Modern Masters. It's okay. Obviously, it's a Lord effect, which is fine. But yeah, and just tapping to regenerate another goblin is obviously not terrible. There's no other costs to it. But yeah, it's just kind of it's not very exciting, but it's functional. So we have 2 Boggart Harbingers, so 2 cards in a black for a 2/1. When it comes to play, you search your library for a goblin card, reveal it, shuffle your library, and put it on top of your deck. So there is a whole cycle of these Harbingers. They're basically there's one for every tribe, and they all have various stats. I think this one's like in the middle of the road, honestly. But yeah, it's fine. It shooters up a load of stuff, including non-creature cards, because Lorwyn is a block where we have tribal spells. So like tribal instants, tribal sorceries, tribal enchantments, tribal artifacts. So this can almost get any card in the deck, I think. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. 3 Face Vaulters. So 1 black mana for a 1/1. You can pay 1 black, sacrifice goblin, gets +2/+2 turn to turn. Yeah, fine for a 1 drop. I think that's perfectly fine. And a single Squeaking Pie Sneak, 1 colours and 1 black for a 2/2. It has fear. As an additional cost to cast it, you have to reveal a goblin from your hand or pay 3. So obviously paying 3 is not ideal. We don't want to pay 5 mana for a 2/2 with fear. Like revealing a card is, generally not great. You don't want to give your opponent information. But, with goblins, it might be something cheap. It might be something you could play, the same turn or something. Like you could do this turn 3 maybe by doing this reveal Face Vaulter and then play Face Vaulter, and it's fine. You've not really given away any information. So yeah, I think it's okay. Again, there's a whole cycle of these cards where they're like really efficiently costed for their size, or the other way around. Their stats are really good for their cost. But you also have to reveal a creature that's the same, or not the creature the same type, just a card that has the same creature type. Anyway, so the other rare of the deck is Boggart Mob. So this is, I think, a lot better than Mad Auntie. So 3 cards in a black for a 5/5. Has the ability Champion, and I really like the ability Champion. I think it's a very fun, cool, evocative mechanic. So Champion is, so this one has Champion a Goblin. When this comes into play, sacrifice it unless you exile another goblin you control, and when this leaves play, that card returns to play. So it's basically, I always thought of this as the evolution mechanic from the Pokemon card game. Like you're upgrading one of your goblins into the Boggart Mob. And when it dies, it just reverts back to its original form, like it's had its moment in the sun. But obviously, champion is really good fun because it's you can use it to trigger leaves the battlefield or enters the battlefield effects. So yeah, I think it's pretty fun, and like the champions usually have very strong effects for their cost because there's essentially you've got the additional cost of having to exile a creature you have, even though it's not a permanent exile. So whenever a goblin you control deals combat damage to a player, you can put a 1/1 black goblin rogue creature token into play. So that's a really strong ability. Because it feeds itself. If you get some of your goblins through, you create more goblin tokens, and the goblin tokens do damage, and they can create goblin tokens. So yeah, really good, strong effect. And of course, like this deck loves having goblin tokens around for sacrifice effects. So yeah, really good rare Boggart mob. Two Hornet Harassers, 2 colors and 2 black for a 2/2. When it dies, gives a creature -2/-2 till end of turn. It's okay, yeah, and you got like sacrifice effects, so you can sort of trigger this whenever you need. Maybe a little expensive at 4 mana, but I think it's basically fine. A single Spiderwig Boggart, 3 mana for a 2/2. When it comes to play, a creature gets fear until end of turn. Yeah, fine, fairly boring, but fine. Two Warren Pilferers, so 5 mana for a 3/3. When it comes to play, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, so it's basically Gravedigger. But if the card is a Goblin card, Warren Pilferers gets haste until turn. So this is potentially very good to do 5 mana, get a Goblin back into your hand from your graveyard, and then swing with a 3/3 haste. I think that's actually pretty good for 5 mana. So yeah, I like Warren Pilferers. And then moving on to the red ones. So we have 3 Adderstaff Boggart, so 1 color and 1 red for a 2/1. But it has Clash. Clash is another mechanic from Lorwyn that I really like. It's just very janky and fun. So when Adderstaff Boggart comes into play, you clash with an opponent, and if you win, you get a +1/+1 counter on the Boggart, so it becomes a 3/2 for 2, which is pretty good. So Clash is each clashing player reveals the top card of their library, then puts the card on the top or the bottom. A player wins the clash if their card has a higher mana value. So yeah, really like fun, quick mechanic to just like resolve. It's you could argue it benefits your opponent as well because they can always like put a dead draw like on the bottom of their deck, but you get to do it as well. So I think Clash is a really fun mechanic, and there's quite a few cards in Lorwyn that use it for various effects. I think in the first set in just Lorwyn, I think all the clashes are just to give maybe +1/+1. Oh, maybe. Well, we'll see. We'll see as we look at the decks. But yeah, this is perfectly fine. Even if you lose the clash, it's a 2/1 for 2 with essentially no drawback, and you get to look at the top card. You essentially get to scry 1, which is fine. I mean, it lets your opponent scry 1 as well. But yeah, basically fine, I think. A single Goat Napper, so 2 colors and a red for a 2/2. When it comes into play, untap target goat and gain control of it until end of turn. It gains haste until end of turn. So you might think that's the most niche ability ever. But the thing is, in Lorwyn, we have changelings who are. Their creature type is shapeshifter, but they all have this ability called changeling, which means they are every creature type. So this basically means, basically gain control of target creature that has changeling. And I have a really fond memory of Goat Napper because I won a game because of this. Because of this card. Like I had these precons and I was playing with a friend, and he played the big green like Changeling Titan, which is like a 7/7. But because it has Changeling, it's every creature type. And I played Goat Napper, gained control of his 7/7, and attacked with it. So yeah, Goat Napper won me a game, and that's why it's a great card. And I mean, it's just funny, isn't it? Just to gain control of a goat. I think got referenced actually in a modern Horizon set. There is just a card called Goat Nap, which is basically act of treason, but like if you target a goat, it gets extra bonuses. Really funny. Anyway, yeah, Goat Napper's great. I like Goat Napper. Obviously, if you can't get effect for that ability, it's just a 2/2 for 3, which isn't wonderful, but it's when you do when it works, it's great. 2 Mud Button Torch Runners, 2 mana and a red, 2 colors and a red even, for a 1/1. When it dies, does 3 damage to a creature or player. So really good chunky amount of damage. So you got like sacrifice effects in the deck, so you can just play really aggressively with this anyway, make people block it or block with it, and then suddenly you shoot someone for 3. So yeah, really good. I really like Mud Button Torch Runner. I kind of wish there'd actually been a third one, but it's fine. And I mean, talking of sacrifice effects, Tar Pitcher, 3 colours and a red for a 2/2 tap, sacrifice a goblin, does 2 damage to any creature, so it does turns your goblins into shocks, which is pretty good. This is kind of like Siege Gang Commander, like the budget Siege Gang Commander, I suppose. I think it's perfectly fine though. If you've got a goblin that's going to die anyway, you might as well use this ability. So yeah, I think Tar Pitch is pretty good. 2 Exiled Boggart, 1 card and a black for a 2/2. When it dies, you discard a card. I mean, that's just bad. That is just bad. You would take this out straight away. Like there is no benefit to this card, I think, in this deck. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but this is just straight up just a bad card. So yeah, they can't all be good. 2 Ghostly Changelings. So this one, the changelings I was talking about. So 2 cards and a black for a 2/2 is a changeling. So it has every creature type at all times, and it's basically like a very expensive shade. You got to spend 2 mana for its like shade ability. It's okay. It's okay. It's basically I say it triggers all your like goblin effects and stuff, and yeah, it's fine. It's kind of here just to fill space, honestly, I think. And then 2 Marsh Flitters, so not a goblin, but it is a fairy, which makes goblins. So 3 cards in black for a 1/1 fly. When it comes to play, creates 2 goblin rogue creature tokens. So it's creating 3 power worth of stuff on the board for 4 mana, which is okay. Sacrifice goblin, and it just becomes 3/3 until end of turn. Not +3/+3. It just sets its base power and toughness to 3/3, which is obviously not as good as +3/+3. But yeah, I think it's fine. Just the fact it can create the tokens when it's played. You got a lot of cards in the deck that care about goblins and goblin tokens. So yeah, I think this is a fine card to have. And then 2 Lowland Oaths, so 4 mana for a 3/3. Tap target goblin creature you control gets +1/+1 for gains flying till end of turn, and it gets sacrificed at end of turn. So yeah, yeet to the goblins. I think this again, it's a fine effect. It's technically a sacrifice effect. Gives you goblins evasion. Or makes them able to block other flyers. I think it's okay. It's essentially Hill Giant with an upside, so it's fine. It's fine. And then moving on to non-creature spells. So we have Boggart Birthright. So this is what I was talking about. It is a tribal sorcery. It is a goblin sorcery, which is pretty cool, I think. So 1 black mana to get a goblin card from your graveyard back to your hand. So this normally would just be creatures, but it can also get these other tribal goblin spells, which I think is pretty fun. So in some ways it's more limited than like just a normal raised dead effect, but in other ways it has a little more flexibility. I mean, if you just got a deck full of goblin cards, which you do, then yeah, I think it's perfectly fine. I'm really sorry, I'm sniffling, by the way. I've got a little bit of a cold, so if I'm sound different or I'm sniffling, it's because I've got a bit of a cold, which is not great, but wanted to record some stuff, so here we are. So a single fodder launch, so 3 colours and a black for a goblin sorcery. As an additional cost to play fodder launch, you have to sacrifice a goblin, which is fine. You want to do that anyway. Target creature gets -5/-5 till end of turn, and fodder launch does 5 damage to that creature controller. So like really big effect, honestly, for 4 mana to. I mean, that is pretty much a guaranteed kill because -5/-5 is a huge like drop. That kills like a lot of creatures. Amongst all these decks and stuff, and doing 5 damage to the controller as well is like a really big chunk of damage, and all it costs. You can use this on a goblin token, and you get a really good deal for it. So yeah, fodder launch is like pretty strong in my opinion. And a single Hoarder's Greed. I'm not so keen on this. So 3 and a black for a sorcery. You lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Then you clash with the opponent, and if you do, repeat the process. So you keep clashing, and if you keep winning, you keep drawing cards, but you keep losing life. Which I'm not. If it was like the option, like you may clash with an opponent to keep doing it, but obviously, it's called Hoarder's Greed. It's obviously going to be compulsory until you keep doing it, until you lose. So this has this just has the potential to backfire really horribly, I suppose. But even without the clash, I think 4 mana for this effect is like pretty expensive. I suppose the upside is like if you win the clash once, you draw 4 cards at 4 life for 4 mana. That's okay, I suppose. I think I think this is me showing my casual side again. I think just because the potential of this horribly backfiring and you losing a bunch of life is not great. I mean, I suppose if you don't want to lose it, you can always like leave a low cost card on top, and like the deck is full of low cost cards anyway because it's goblins. Anyway. Two tough eyes. This is just shock, but it's got the goblin type, so yeah, it's shock, which is fine. Two Boggart Shenanigans, 2 cards in a red. Whenever a goblin you control dies, Boggart Shenanigans does 1 damage to a player. Really, really good. You've got a bunch of goblins who, love getting sacrificed, so yeah, really good card to include in here. And 2 Shimmering Grottos. Non-basic land, taps to give you 1 colourless, or you can spend 1 and tap and filter your mana, gives yourself 1 mana of any colour. So yeah, I think that's fine. So what could have been? So generally, I do think the deck is okay. The one major change I would say is, I mean, it's not fair to say like Mad Auntie is, should be uncommon because it wasn't at the time. I think Warp Boggart Auntie though would have been more interesting than Mad Auntie. So Wart is 2 cards in black and a red for a 3/3, has fear, and at the beginning of your upkeep you get a goblin from your graveyard back into your hand. So really, really strong effect, and yeah, definitely would have a lot more interesting than just Mad Auntie, I think. Regarding the other cards, Caterwauling Boggart, 3 cards in a red, 2/2. Goblins you control have menace, and each elemental you control has menace. You don't have any elementals in the deck, but just I think this effect that gives all your goblins menace is pretty strong. Death Render, I suppose, could be a possibility, but yeah, I'd say, I don't know what you'd replace for it. But it gives the equipped creature +2/+2, and when it dies, you put a creature card from your hand into play and attach Death Render to it, which is just a really fun card, honestly. And I say you're sacrificing creatures so much, you could kind of use this to chainsaw through your hand and just drop a bunch of goblins in a single turn. And then Knucklebone Witch is just 1 black mana for a 1/1. Whenever a goblin you control dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on Knucklebone Witch. It's okay, I suppose. You've got to really get it down early, I think. So yeah, overall, out of all these, I think Wart should have been in the deck instead of Mad Auntie, because I think all the other Lorwyn Precons have a legendary creature in them. So it's weird that the Goblin one doesn't, even though there's a perfectly good one right there. But yeah. So in summary, I like this deck. I had this one and I played it pretty much as standard. Made obviously a few tweaks to it, like take out the exiled Boggart, because that's not good. But yeah, Black Red Goblins as a whole were pretty good in Lorwyn. Could suddenly just kind of go off and win out of nowhere with all the kind of sacrifice effects. So yeah, this is a pretty good start for looking at the Lorwyn decks. But what are your thoughts after seeing the deck? Did you have this deck? I mean, if you've got any thoughts or opinions or stories about this deck, please put a comment below. I'd love to read them. But I'll be back next time. I'm going to look at another Lorwyn pre-constructed deck. But until then, thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.